Did you know there is a fish in the deep ocean that has been recorded dissolving its own prey while it's still alive from the inside? Not biting it, not tearing it apart, dissolving it while the prey is still moving. And that's not even the most deranged thing we're covering today. The deep ocean is often described as mysterious, dark, unknown. And sure, all of that is technically accurate, but what that framing leaves out is this. The creatures living down there are not just weird, they are not just strange or alien or unusual. Some of them are straight up operating without any moral code whatsoever. We're talking about animals that have been sitting in absolute darkness for millions of years, evolving in complete isolation, and somewhere along the way, a bunch of them looked at the concept of normal predator behavior and decided, you know what? Let's skip that entirely. Some of these creatures invented hunting strategies so vicious that marine biologists describing them in papers still manage to sound genuinely disturbed, and several of them are so committed to killing that they will absolutely destroy themselves in the process just to get the job done. So today, we are ranking the deep sea's most psychopathic killers, not by size, not by fame, by pure, documented, unhinged behavior. And fair warning, some of these are going to make you feel things about the ocean that you cannot undo. Let's get into it. We start with something that sounds harmless until you understand what it actually does. The Sarcastic Fringehead is a fish. A small one. It maxes out at about 30 centimeters, which is roughly the length of a ruler. It lives in the Pacific Ocean, mostly off the coast of California and Mexico, in rocky crevices and abandoned shells on the seafloor. And it is absolutely unhinged. When another male sarcastic fringehead enters its territory, something remarkable and genuinely disturbing happens. The fish opens its mouth, and it keeps opening it. And it keeps opening it, until the jaw has expanded to a size that is almost comically larger than the fish's own head. Then the two fish press their open mouths together and start wrestling, jaw to jaw, in a shoving match that looks less like a fight between fish and more like two umbrellas trying to swallow each other. The winner claims the territory. The loser retreats, presumably never recovering emotionally. Scientists call this gaping behavior. The fish itself seems to call it Tuesday. But here's what makes this relevant beyond just being funny. That jaw can open wide enough to engulf prey almost as large as the fish itself. This is not a creature that was designed to catch small things. It was designed to catch anything that fits in that nightmare mouth, which it turns out is a lot. This is your warm-up. It gets worse from here. Next up, we have the deep-sea dragonfish. And before you picture something cool and dragon-like, let me adjust your mental image. This is a small eel-shaped fish. Dark brown, almost black, with tiny eyes and a body that looks vaguely like something you would find in a nightmare about dental work. It has transparent teeth, actual fang-like transparent teeth that do not reflect light. The reason this matters is because in the deep ocean, almost everything produces bioluminescence, that faint glow that living things give off in the dark. If a predator has teeth that reflect that light, prey might see them coming. The dragonfish solved this problem by evolving teeth that are literally invisible. Scientists who discovered this spent considerable time figuring out how it was even structurally possible. The answer involves a nanostructure coating on the teeth that absorbs light instead of reflecting it. This fish accidentally invented stealth technology millions of years before humans thought of it, and then it uses those invisible fangs to impale prey that never saw it coming because they literally could not see it coming. The dragonfish also has a bioluminescent lure dangling from its chin. A little glowing barbell that it drifts through the water like it's saying, "Hey, come check this out." And when something curious swims over to look at the pretty light, it meets the invisible teeth. Immediately. Nature designed a creature with a literal lure and invisible fangs, and the patience to just float in the dark, waiting for something curious enough to die. There was no mercy involved in this design process. Now, before we get to the absolute worst offenders, and trust me, we are getting there, I want to pause here and say something honestly. If you are the kind of person who watches videos about the ocean doing things it absolutely should not be doing, and you want more of this every week, hit the like button and subscribe right now. We cover the stuff that makes marine biologists visibly uncomfortable in conference rooms, and we do it every single week. You do not want to miss what's coming up in this video, because we have not even touched the creatures that go after things way above their weight class yet. Now, let's talk about the pistol shrimp. The pistol shrimp is a crustacean. It is roughly the size of your finger. It lives in shallow tropical waters, and in terms of raw destructive output per pound of body weight, it might be the single most dangerous creature on this list. Here's what it does. It has one claw that is significantly larger than the other. That oversized claw can snap shut so fast, so violently, that it creates a cavitation bubble in the water. If you do not know what a cavitation bubble is, here is what you need to understand. When that claw snaps, it accelerates a jet of water fast enough to create a tiny vacuum. The bubble that forms reaches temperatures briefly approaching the surface of the sun. We are talking about 8,000 degrees Fahrenheit from a shrimp. The bubble then collapses, producing a shockwave, a flash of light, and a sound loud enough to stun or kill small fish and crabs nearby. The shrimp then walks over and collects the unconscious or dead prey without ever physically touching it. It is not biting anything. It is not chasing anything. It is generating a localized near-solar temperature plasma shockwave from its claw and then casually eating whatever stopped moving. There are so many pistol shrimp on certain reef systems that their collective snapping produces a constant crackling background noise loud enough to interfere with submarine sonar. The ocean floor in some regions is basically carpeted with tiny shrimp that are functionally detonating miniature explosions constantly, and we just thought that was normal. We didn't even notice for a long time because it was just always there. Now we go deeper. Literally. The anglerfish. You know the anglerfish. The glowing lure, the massive jaws, the nightmare face that has appeared in every deep-sea documentary since cameras were invented. You've seen it. You think you know it. You don't know the worst part. The worst part is what the male anglerfish does to survive, because the male anglerfish is tiny. Compared to the female, he is almost comically small, about the size of a thumb, no lure, barely functional, almost like he was designed as an afterthought. And his entire biological purpose is to find a female and not let go. When a male finds a female, he bites her. Not aggressively. He just bites her body and holds on. And then something happens that should not be possible in a species that reproduces sexually. His body begins to fuse with hers. His lips attach to her skin. His circulatory system merges with hers. Over time, his eyes degenerate. His internal organs degenerate. His brain essentially degenerates. He becomes, functionally, a permanently attached reproductive organ with a shared blood supply. A single female anglerfish has been found with 6 males fused to her body at once. 6 of them, just hanging there, dissolved into her, providing exactly one biological function and nothing else. Scientists who discovered this were, and I want to be precise here, not okay for a while. Because this is not just a weird adaptation. This is a creature that has solved the problem of finding a mate in pitch black water by essentially just becoming part of another creature permanently. Is that terrifying? Technically, it's just biology. But also, yes, that is terrifying. But now we need to talk about the real reason we are all here. The creature that, after everything we just covered, still somehow sits at the top of this list in terms of absolute operational chaos. The Bobbit Worm. The Bobbit Worm is a polychaete worm. It lives buried in the sandy floor of the deep ocean, in tropical and subtropical waters around the world. It can reach 5 feet in length, sometimes longer, and it spends essentially its entire existence buried underground with just its head sticking out, waiting. And when something comes close enough, it strikes. The speed of a bobbit worm strike has been recorded at roughly 4 meters per second. For a worm, that is fast enough that the strike is essentially invisible on normal camera footage and has to be captured with high-speed cameras to actually see what is happening. But the strike itself is not even the unhinged part. The unhinged part is the method. The bobbit worm has 5 antennae on its head that detect vibrations and movement in the water above it. The moment something triggers those sensors, the worm erupts from the sand with such force that it has been documented cutting fish in half on contact, not biting them in half, not slowly constricting them, cutting them clean in half on the initial strike from the force and the speed alone. There are accounts from aquariums that kept fish tanks without knowing a bobbit worm had hitchhiked in on a piece of live rock. Fish started disappearing overnight. No explanation. And then one day, someone looked closely enough, and there it was, buried in the substrate, waiting. Having been systematically hunting the entire tank in darkness, while the aquarium staff thought they just had terrible luck with fish survival. One aquarium reportedly found a bobbit worm that had grown to over 4 feet long living undetected inside a display tank for years. Years. It was just in there, eating, growing, waiting, completely invisible during the day, operating at night, for years. And no one noticed until the evidence became impossible to ignore. That is not predator behavior. That is a long con. And now, the closer. The one that earns the top spot on this list, not because it is the largest or the fastest, but because it hunts in a way that should not physically work and yet absolutely does. The giant Pacific octopus does not live in the deep ocean. It lives in coastal waters. But everything it does belongs on this list because the giant Pacific octopus is not just a predator, it is a tactician. These animals have been documented opening jars, disassembling equipment, recognizing individual human faces, and escaping from tanks that their keepers believed were completely secure. But the actual hunting behavior is what earns the spot here. Because the giant Pacific octopus does not just hunt fish and crabs, it hunts sharks. There are verified filmed instances of giant Pacific octopuses catching and consuming dogfish sharks, sharks that are themselves active predators. The octopus approaches from above, drops onto the shark's dorsal surface, and wraps its arms around the shark's gill slits, suffocating it. It is using anatomy knowledge to exploit the shark's single respiratory vulnerability. It is finding the exact weakness in the shark's design and targeting it specifically. Marine biologists have described this as evidence of problem-solving intelligence applied to hunting, which is a very calm scientific way of saying, this animal figured out how to kill something that should be killing it by studying it. That is not instinct, that is planning. The deep ocean has animals that dissolve prey alive, hunt with plasma shockwaves, fuse themselves to mates permanently, run multi-year undercover operations in fish tanks, and reverse engineer their predators to kill them instead. And we have explored less than 25% of the seafloor, which means somewhere down there, in water we have never reached, in darkness no camera has ever recorded, there are almost certainly things doing things we have not even conceived of yet. That is not a comforting thought, but it is a fascinating one. Alright, before you go and quietly reconsider every beach trip you have ever planned, drop a comment telling me which one of these creatures you think is the most unhinged. The bobbit worm running a silent years-long killing operation in someone's fish tank? The shrimp casually detonating near solar temperature explosions for lunch? Or the octopus that looked at a shark and thought, I can take that? I genuinely need to know where you land on this. And if this video made you feel the appropriate amount of disturbed about the ocean, hit like and subscribe. We do this every week and it keeps getting worse in the best possible way. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.